Then a hidden happiness after the pandemic. What is it? This idea that we were waiting for so long for things to return to normal, and that when things return to normal, everything will be okay. And things ended in the sense of the chaos and the extreme restrictions and demands placed on our life and our work and our families. And what happened? Boom. That expectation of how things were going to return to normal quickly fizzled away in the realization that there is no normal coming back, that there is a new normal. The expectation of walking into everybody perceiving life being okay prior to the pandemic and waiting for things to shift really knocked people off their pedestal. And this internal conflict that expecting things to be so much greater and then returning to that point or coming to that point, and things aren't really as people expected for them to be. And then people are living in this hidden silence of disappointment and of confusion and of doubt. And here's the truth. There was a mental health pandemic even before any pandemic, or the pandemic that we have experienced. Mental health was a pandemic before that. And yes, things have worsened in regards to our mental health. And the biggest thing in regards to mental health is that we hide away and we shy away from expressing what's going on underneath the surface. We cover it up. There's this sense like that, an embarrassment of expressing how you feel, so you just don't say it. And it's very likely that how you feel and the internal dialogue that you have with yourself, so many other people are having it. But the dysfunction happens is when we avoid it and suppress it and ignore it, or when we label it as it, meaning that there's something wrong with us. And then there's this like guilt and frustration and anxiety, a secondary emotional baggage or emotional discomfort around what you're experiencing. So the experience of the conflict moving into the new normal of expecting things to be different and ending up just more stress, more overwhelm, more tension than ever before. And then the silencing of that or keeping it quiet, because that idea that you should be grateful for what you have. You should be grateful that you got over all that. You should be grateful now that we have our freedom. You should be grateful that all the restrictions are lifted. You should be grateful that you can go on holidays, and you should be grateful and da. And the story goes on, but just compounding more and more of how your system is responding to that dissatisfaction, that sense of like being disappointed and being let down by how the world currently is. And then, as I said, further compounded by holding that in and feeling that there's something wrong with you for having that experience. And in fact, this is a very common occurrence with people. People had this idea that after all these restrictions, after all the experience of the last 2 or 3 years, that things would be okay again, and things are worse. And I want people to know that they're not alone in that feeling that things are worse, that the overwhelm is more, that the stress is more, that the anxiety is more, that the disconnect is more, that the dissatisfaction is more. You are not alone at all. It's completely normal. But here is a place and an opportunity for you to flip that around, for you to realize that that is a process of living from the outside in. That's a process of living, waiting for circumstances to change, waiting for things to get better, waiting for the economy to change, waiting and waiting and waiting and hoping and hoping and hoping. And in that, you deny the truth of who you are. You deny your own internal powerful resources to take control of your own emotional state. Your emotional state is an internal process. Your emotional state and how you respond to your life and life events, whether the past, whether currently, or going into the future, all comes from how your mind and body is perceiving your environment, how your mind and body is perceiving yourself in relation to what's happening in the current climate. And it really is the perception, the beliefs, the structures, the ideas entertained on an intellectual level that impacts the emotional brain and creates the dissonance or the disharmony or the discomfort of the unease and anxiety and stress and overwhelm that goes on in the body. It's a state. It's a chemical. What you experience in your body is a chemical state that has been communicated from your mind, from your perception in how to respond. And in that state of anxiety, stress, and overwhelm, it is really difficult to see the wood from the trees. It's really difficult to see that there's an alternative option, because what that state essentially is in the body is a state of threat. It's a state of you're just in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you have to keep the blinkers on. You have to watch out for the threat. You have to analyze everything. And everything is just one-dimensional thinking from the perspective of things can go wrong, from the perspective of being in danger, for the perspective of feeling so uncertain and having no say or no control in your life. So in that state, the opposite cannot happen. Like night and day cannot coincide together. That state of stress and anxiety and overwhelm, that state of threat, that system that is turned on inside of you is the opposite to the state that we all desire of happiness and joy, contentment and peace. And to start this journey within yourself is to first realize that that is possible. To first realize that that is a state, that that is an existence, that that is an experience, and that can become your experience, depending on how you perceive yourself and your capacity, how you understand your conditioning as a human being. It's really vitally important in how you understand yourself and your capacity to communicate and to create a future that you desire, a future that's different, a future that's beyond the stress and overwhelm and criticism and judgment and worry and doubt. And by first acknowledging that, because that is a condition, that is an experience, acknowledging that your body and your system has the capacity to operate from that perspective, because it operates from the current perspective, because it's driven by the concepts and perceptions and analysis and judgments and evaluations that go on in your mind, your intellectual mind. But with your intellectual mind, you have the capacity to make up and create the opposite end of that spectrum and start practicing it. Start teaching your mind and body the new conditioning of what you desire to live. And start to embody that, start to be it. Because what is happening when we don't practice the being of that which we desire, then what becomes our being, or what remains our being, is the memories and states and conditions of the past, because that is the only information that our body has, our minds and body has to work off. Our mind and body is only ever working off instruction and information that is passed down, that is impressed into it, because, or downloaded into it. It was downloaded into you to begin with. So whatever we impress into the subconscious mind, into our minds, becomes the state that our body operates off, and then dictates our results or how we experience our life on a day-to-day basis. It really is, though, first knowing that you have the capacity through your ability to alter your perception around whether you have that capacity to alter that perception and entertain that perception and practice that perception and become that perception in your life on a continuous basis, Repetition is the first law of learning. To consistently practice that which you desire. That's what for what you desire in your future, to practice that in the present moment. And then in doing that, in practicing the conditions, in teaching the mind and body the conditions of what you desire to have in the future, it then becomes your reality. So hit me up, like this video, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. There you can see all my offers, all my links, and reach out if you need that support, which most of us do. All of us need some level of support. You're a human being. It's part of our conditioning. If this video has helped you and I can help you in any other way, please reach out. Please connect.